Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Colton. I am your Maximo subject matter expert here at IBM, covering our national market. So today we have a really exciting topic. We're expanding off a prior demonstration that I did around conditional monitoring, in which I walked you through how you can manually do conditional monitoring, whether it's an inspection where you're entering meter readings or work order where you're having to enter meter readings for a particular piece of equipment. That data then goes into your core manage application, which you know and love for work order management, inventory management. And Maximo in the background will analyze that data using the conditional monitoring application to then trigger a preventive maintenance plan, a work order based off of if that meter reading goes beyond a certain threshold. We also talk through how we can automate that, at least for low frequency data streams coming from your equipment by using Maximo's integration framework. So very same concept as what you would see manually, but we can integrate with those devices for at least for low frequency readings. You don't want real time going into your core EAM database in order to automate the ability of conditional monitoring. Now, the last subject that we didn't cover in last demonstrations is how do we automate that real-time data coming from, for example, variable frequency drives from PLCs, SCADA, OSI Pi historians, and get that data into Maximo. So there's actually a different technique that we go about for automating real-time streams and tag data from equipment into Maximo. And it's using a tool within the application suite called Maximo Monitor, which is specifically built for these type of millisecond data streams that you want to bring in to Maximo for analytics. Now, Maximo Monitor has a couple components to it, so it's not going to share the same database that your core Maximo Manage application uses. We actually set up a separate database for streaming this real-time data. And along that, we also set up an analytics platform on top of that. What that's for is so that you can begin to analyze the data coming in. We have many modern machine learning techniques that we have built into the tool that as soon as that data becomes available within Maximo Monitor, you can begin to then analyze that beyond just the normal conditional monitoring that you're all doing today. And then lastly, on top of that is our dashboarding capability. So making sure you can visualize all of this information. And just as importantly, it integrates right into your core manage application. So all that data that you're collecting, you can then include and stream, whether that's creating a service request from an anomaly or a work order, all of that can go back into your core work order management processes. So that is the capabilities of Maximo Monitor. But the most invaluable part of it is its ability to integrate with those devices. And that's what we're going to be covering in detail on today's demonstration. So now that we've given you kind of a high level understanding of what Maximo Monitor is, let's go into some of the details of how we have some of these out of the box connectors with different operational technologies that you all use in your day-to-day. So on the left-hand side, you have your traditional industrial stack. This includes your end devices, your PLCs, OPC servers, your SCADA historians, and which Maximo Monitor natively supports. So we support a wide variety of different protocols that your devices leverage today, as well as the systems that you use to consolidate a lot of the data that you're collecting, whether that be in factory talk, OSI Pi, Ingestion. We have out-of-the-box support for those technologies, along with some other technologies such as Telit, Kepware, in which we would connect to those via OPC and MQTT. So let's quickly cover what is and not supported from a technology standpoint with Maximo Monitor. What you can see here and what's really, really important to highlight is this second column right here, which is some of the supported protocols that we have. One of the biggest challenges that we hear from clients is when being able to integrate data from OT systems to what we call IT systems like Maximo, is being able to not only integrate the different protocols in which these devices support, because there's thousands of devices that you all have in your current environments today, understanding the protocols, but also the data models behind these devices. Now, this is typically tracked in an OEM manual. Now, that you would have to typically go through to not only understand, okay, what protocols do they have, but what's the core data model behind it to then be able to integrate that information and translate it to something a system, an IT system like Maximo, would be able to understand and ingest. With Monitor, we provide that framework and those templates for you out of the box. And we have over thousands of device templates within our device library today. And I'm going to walk you guys through that as we go through this demonstration, where you can just click on the device that you want to, like a Siemens device, for example, that you want to be able to connect into. You'll be able to build that out into a solution that you can then deploy on a physical gateway on your network to extract that data automatically and send it into Maximo. And it is as simple as that. And so that's what we're going to cover today, because for many customers today, that is the hardest part about building out a solution like this, is having all of that ready to go instead of them having to build it out themselves from scratch. And when it comes to that device library, here are just some of the manufacturers that we support out of the box. You through a real world example of how you would leverage Maximo Monitor to connect to a Lindsay i550 variable frequency drive and the steps in order to do so. So one of the first steps I'm going to walk you through is within the core Maximo Monitor application. One of the first steps we're going to take is we're going to identify if the device is already available in our library, which will include the data model, the entire data model for that device. It'll include the protocol in which it supports that we will need to communicate with. Um, and once we've identified that, Maximo Monitor will automatically create what we need to deploy on our physical gateway in order to connect to that device. And it's as easy as that. And I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to do so. And Maximo will handle all the heavy lifting of identifying the device, building that mapping, and even the container that we need to run on the gateway, which think of the gateway as a physical Linux box or computer that runs the Docker platform. And that Docker platform is what is used to run containerized applications. Maximo Monitor handles all of that uplifting in order to get that configured and ready to go for that gateway on your network. And once that's done, that gateway will understand exactly where to connect to that Lindsay i550 variable frequency device, and the data will start streaming through. And that's what we're going to cover on today's demonstration. So now the ultimate goal of this demonstration is going to have us connect to that Lindsay i550 variable frequency device. Now, when we complete this, it's going to look something very similar to this, where we will have real-time data streaming into the actual platform. And once the data is beginning to stream into Maximo Monitor is where it will then be able to create dashboards and do analytics very similar to what we see here within this screen. We'll be able to visualize trends over periods of time and be able to begin to do our analytics. Now, this is really the end goal of what we're going to show in this demonstration. Let's now switch gears and walk you through the process of setting up this device to stream data like we've just seen. So now let's walk you through how to set up a Lindsay i550 device and connect it into Maximo Monitor. So the first step that you'll need to take is we're going to go ahead and over on the left-hand side, we have our navigation menu. We're just going to go down to Device Library in order to add a new device. Now, this device library is where we can then add the devices, our core out-of-the-box device library, in order to connect into. Now, as I mentioned before, this is just a subset of all the different devices that we have built, not only the protocol, but the data model for these devices are already built into the Maximo Monitor systems. So when we go to create a new device model for or device that we want to look for, there's several ways that we can do this. We can either scan by protocol, or we can import its device settings directly into Maximo, so we know exactly what device we're wanting to bring in data from. First step, and probably the easiest step to adding these devices, are scanning by protocol. So here, if we example have the IP address, we can simply type it in. We can export out the Docker command, which is essentially an application that we send to your gateway. You run it on your gateway, and it can automatically retrieve that information for a device that supports this protocol. So it scans the network in order to find these devices. And the same thing we would do for BACnet, Allen Bradley, and some of the other protocols as well. The other way is we can also import the device settings. So here, let's say, for example, we want to identify a device based off of the protocol. We're going to say this is Lindsay, and give it a product name. Let's say it's the i500, and here we'll go ahead and set i550 simulator 2. Perfect. Next step we would do is click create. And down below, we can see what an example mapping would look like. Now, in order to create these mappings, and this is how we can take information from, for example, the different registers, and we can map it into a format that Maximo can actually understand and ingest. So a simple way to do this is just to export out the template, which will contain all the different components we would need to input in order for Maximo to take example data from the different registers and bring it into Maximo. So this is essentially the data model that we're having Maximo Monitor take from the device and then map it into a format that we can ingest. Now, luckily, I've already done some of that process. So here we would just need to upload the file. Here we can go to my desktop. There we go. And once that's done, you can see down before the example formatted text. By clicking the next button, we can see exactly which of those registers that I want to pull data from. We have information related to the length, the multiplier, and all we need to do after this is just click the finish button. If everything goes well, you'll see that the device has been added below. So now that we've set up the device that we want to connect into, the next step of this process is to create a gateway. And this gateway is essentially what's going to sit on the actual physical gateway on your network to then look for that device. So let's go ahead and just add a gateway. We can just give it a name. Here is where we would identify additional security settings, including our self-signed certificate. And then we can also enter other information related to this gateway that's going to connect to this device. Oh, let's go ahead and enter that one more time and click save. Once that's done, the next step that we have to take before we view deployment instructions is just add the device. So here we're going to use our device library. We're going to say this is our Lindsay device. We can see the device type that we have below, and there you go. We see the simulator show up. Let's go ahead and click next. Here is where we're going to specify exactly what port. And let's say this is over TCP. So I have this running at this IP address and this port. So let's go ahead and put that in there and click next. We then will give it a different device ID and a device type. So this is a specific identifier for this specific device that the gateway will look for. Here we can just say it is and now this is a really important part. So now at this point we've told Maximo, okay, so as part of this gateway, I want you to be looking for these devices at this IP address. Next thing we're going to want to do is set, okay, what's the frequency that we want to ingest this data? And so here we're going to select those based off of the data model. We're going to select which metrics we want to pull in at what frequency, and then we can go ahead and click the save button. Now that that's done, the next step is to automatically pull the right command that we need to do in order to deploy the image or the container image that we're going to put on our Docker platform on the gateway itself. And Maximo does all of this for us. So all we need to do is copy the command. we can pull up our terminal that's running Docker on the actual gateway itself. So here, let's go ahead and copy and paste the deployment instructions. Very good. It's going to look for that device and it's going to publish the gateway. We'll give that a second to run, but as soon as we do, we should see events show up in the recent events. And there you go. So with that team, what we're seeing here is our gateway was now able to connect to that frequency drive to pull in all of that real-time data in which we can now begin analysis and to build dashboards around. So not only can we do conditional monitoring here, but we can apply this real-time data against modern machine learning algorithms for things such as anomaly detection. And just as invaluable, our clients in the past have really been challenged with the simplicity of leveraging out of the box data model structures and protocols that we can then create a device, deploy a gateway to your network that can understand not only the protocols that you have across your devices, but how to ingest that data and get it into Maximo so that it can be analyzed for additional insight. With that, team, this is the demonstration I want to walk you through today. There's more demonstrations coming up around how to dashboard, how to apply machine learning, such as calculated metrics. But today, I really wanted to focus around just walking you all through how do we even get that data in to perform analytics against it. So with that, thank you for your time, everyone, and look forward to future videos.